September 12, 1944. Task Force 38 off the Philippine Sea. Essex-class carriers steam information while commissary crews fire up industrial galley equipment below decks. Japanese submarine I-19 tracks the American fleet from perimeter distance, while captured Japanese naval officers at Allied interrogation centers struggle to comprehend the logistical magnitude of what they witnessed. The challenge is monumental. Feed 3,600 sailors per carrier, multiple times daily, while operating thousands of miles from home ports in active combat zones. Commander Takeshi Kinashi raised his periscope for the third time in 20 minutes, watching the American carrier formation through the lens with growing bewilderment that bordered on disbelief. I-19 had been trailing Task Force 38 for 6 hours, maintaining careful distance while cataloging what appeared to be the largest concentration of floating cities he had ever witnessed. Each Essex-class carrier stretched 888 feet, displacing 27,100 tons, and from his calculations, housing what looked like the population of a small Japanese town. "Commander, the supply ships?" whispered Chief Petty Officer Yoshida Matsuo, peering over the attack periscope controls. "They transfer cargo continuously, even while maintaining formation speed." Kinashi lowered the scope and turned to his navigation charts, where he had been tracking the fleet's logistics operations since dawn. According to his observations, merchant vessels approached the carriers every few hours, conducting what the Americans called underway replenishment, while steaming at 15 knots. The operation defied everything he understood about naval logistics, where ships traditionally anchored in protected harbors to take on supplies. "The sheer volume is impossible," Kinashi muttered, consulting his notebook where he had recorded transfer tonnages. "Each carrier must house thousands of men, and they operate continuously without returning to port." Through his periscope lens, Kinashi watched as a supply ship maneuvered alongside the USS Essex, transferring what appeared to be pallets of provisions, while both vessels maintained course and speed. The operation proceeded with mechanical precision, suggesting routine rather than emergency resupply. Steam rose from multiple points on each carrier's superstructure, indicating massive cooking operations running around the clock. Lieutenant Saburo Hayashi, the boat's navigation officer, studied the intelligence reports they had received from combined fleet headquarters regarding American carrier operations, comparing the written assessments with their direct observations. According to these reports, each carrier houses between 3,000 and 4,000 personnel, he said, spreading the documents across the chart table. But the logistics requirements suggest numbers far beyond anything we anticipated. Kinashi nodded grimly while calculating tonnages in his head. If each carrier truly housed 3,600 personnel, and American naval dietary standards called for substantial meals multiple times daily, the food requirements alone would exceed anything the Imperial Japanese Navy had attempted. "Watch the galley exhausts," he instructed, pointing toward the carrier's superstructure. "Count the smokestacks and estimate cooking capacity." The Japanese submarine crew continued their surveillance, documenting operations that revealed the industrial scale of American naval logistics. Through careful observation, they noted that each carrier operated multiple cooking facilities simultaneously, producing what appeared to be continuous meal service rather than the traditional 3-meal schedule common to Japanese naval operations. Steam and smoke rose from 7 distinct points on each carrier, suggesting parallel cooking operations capable of feeding thousands of personnel without interruption. Meanwhile, 2,400 miles away in a classified interrogation facility at Pearl Harbor, Lieutenant Commander James Patterson faced across a metal table from former Imperial Japanese Navy Captain Hiroshi Nakamura, recently captured when his destroyer was sunk during the Battle of the Philippine Sea. The interrogation room's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows while Patterson methodically worked through questions about Japanese naval logistics, gradually building toward topics that would reveal the full scope of American operations. "Captain Nakamura," Patterson began, consulting his notes, "during your service with the combined fleet, what were your observations regarding American carrier task force operations?" Nakamura shifted uncomfortably in his chair, still processing the psychological adjustment from combat command to prisoner status. But the Geneva Convention protocols and his own sense of professional curiosity made him willing to discuss technical matters with his captors. "Your carriers," he said slowly, "operate differently from what we expected based on our intelligence estimates. Patterson leaned forward, recognizing the opening he needed. In what specific ways? The endurance, Nakamura replied, his voice carrying a mixture of professional respect and bewilderment. Your task forces remain at sea for months without returning to port, while maintaining full operational capability including air operations. Yet our intelligence suggested this should be impossible given the logistics requirements. Patterson consulted his notes, which contained detailed information about American carrier operations that had been declassified for interrogation purposes. What did your intelligence estimates suggest regarding crew sizes and supply requirements? Nakamura paused, clearly wrestling with the implications of what he had witnessed during combat operations. Our estimates assumed crew sizes similar to Japanese carriers, approximately 1,600 to 2,000 personnel per vessel, he explained. But the sustained operations we observed suggest numbers far beyond those calculations, perhaps 3,000 to 4,000 personnel per carrier, and the supply implications of those crew sizes. Impossible, Nakamura said flatly, then caught himself and continued more carefully. What I mean to say is that the logistics requirements would be unprecedented. To feed 3,000 to 4,000 men at sea, continuously while maintaining combat operations, would require supply operations on an industrial scale. Patterson nodded, allowing the conversation to develop naturally while gathering intelligence about Japanese perceptions of American capabilities. During your observations of American task force operations, what impressed you most? Nakamura considered the question carefully, then spoke with the precision of a professional naval officer discussing technical matters. The continuous operations without degradation of capability, he said. Your carriers launch aircraft strikes, conduct flight operations, and maintain formation steaming without apparent regard for supply limitations that would force Japanese vessels to return to port. Can you be more specific about the supply operations you observed? The replenishment ships, Nakamura replied, his voice carrying unmistakable amazement. They approach your carriers while underway and transfer massive quantities of supplies, including what appeared to be fresh provisions. The scale suggests meal preparation for thousands of personnel, multiple times daily, using industrial cooking facilities. Patterson made notes while Nakamura continued, his professional fascination overcoming his reluctance to provide detailed information. From a naval architecture perspective, the Japanese officer explained, the galley facilities required to feed such numbers would necessitate massive steam plants, refrigeration systems, and food storage compartments far beyond anything in Japanese naval design. At the same time, in a secure intelligence facility in Bari, Italy, Maggiore Alberto Rossini of the Regia Marina's intelligence division studied captured Allied documents that had fallen into Italian hands during the confused final months of the war. The documents, recovered from a damaged American supply ship in the Mediterranean, contained logistics manuals and supply schedules that revealed operational details about American naval operations in the Pacific Theater. Rossini spread the translated documents across his desk, comparing American naval logistics procedures with Italian naval practices, while calculating the implications for overall fleet capability. The numbers seemed almost fantastical when compared to Italian naval operations, where ships typically returned to port every few days for reprovisioning, and where crew sizes remained limited by supply capacity. Colonello, Rossini called to his superior, Lieutenant Colonel Marco Benedetti. These American logistics manuals describe carrier operations that seem to exceed anything we considered possible. Benedetti approached the desk, studying the translated documents with the careful attention of a professional intelligence officer. What specific aspects concern you? The crew sizes and feeding requirements, Rossini explained, pointing to detailed charts and supply schedules. According to these documents, each American Essex-class carrier houses approximately 3,600 personnel and operates multiple galley facilities capable of producing over 15,000 meals daily. Benedetti examined the numbers more closely, cross-referencing with Italian naval data for comparison. Our largest vessels carry perhaps 1,200 to 1,500 men, he noted, and require port facilities for major reprovisioning every few days. These numbers suggest continuous operations on a scale that would require complete rethinking of naval logistics. Rossini nodded, continuing his analysis of the captured documents. The interesting detail is the industrial approach to food preparation, he said, reading from translated technical manuals. They describe galley equipment including steam kettles capable of holding 80 gallons, dough mixers that process 60 pounds of flour at once, and refrigeration systems that maintain fresh food storage for weeks at sea. The strategic implications are enormous, Benedetti observed, understanding the broader context of what the documents revealed. If American carriers can truly operate for extended periods without returning to port, while maintaining full crew efficiency through adequate provisioning, they possess operational flexibility that exceeds anything we anticipated. Rossini continued reading through the technical specifications, finding details that painted a picture of naval operations conducted on an unprecedented scale. According to these supply schedules, he explained, each carrier receives approximately 9 tons of food daily through underway replenishment operations, including fresh provisions, frozen meats, and dry stores sufficient to maintain full meal service for thousands of personnel. Back aboard I-19, Commander Kinashi completed his surveillance of Task Force 38 and began compiling his report for transmission to Combined Fleet Headquarters. The observations he recorded would contribute to Japanese naval intelligence assessments of American capabilities, though the full implications would not be understood until after the war ended. Final count, Kinashi announced to his crew, 12 Essex-class carriers, operating in formation, with continuous underway replenishment from at least 8 supply vessels. Each carrier shows multiple galley exhausts indicating simultaneous cooking operations, and the volume of supplies transferred suggests crew sizes far exceeding our intelligence estimates. Lieutenant Hayashi compiled the technical observations into a formal report, documenting the logistics operations they had witnessed. Commander, if our calculations are correct, each carrier operates galley facilities capable of feeding what amounts to a small city, while maintaining formation steaming and conducting combat operations. Include in the report, Kinashi instructed, that American carrier operations appear to be conducted on an industrial scale that exceeds Imperial Japanese Navy logistics capabilities by orders of magnitude. The continuous feeding of thousands of personnel, while at sea, represents a logistical achievement that our current naval infrastructure could not replicate. The submarine's radio operator, Petty Officer 2nd Class Tanaka Hiroshi, prepared to transmit the intelligence report to headquarters, encoding the observations about American logistics that would eventually reach the highest levels of Japanese naval command. The report would join other intelligence assessments painting a picture of American industrial capacity that Japanese planners had not fully anticipated. Meanwhile, at the Pearl Harbor interrogation facility, Lieutenant Commander Patterson continued his systematic questioning of Captain Nakamura, gradually building a comprehensive understanding of Japanese perceptions of American naval capabilities. The interrogation proceeded according to established protocols, with Patterson careful to maintain professional courtesy while gathering intelligence that would contribute to post-war assessments. Captain Nakamura, Patterson continued, during your combat experience against American carrier task forces, what aspects of their operations surprised you most? Nakamura considered the question carefully, his response reflecting the analytical mind of a professional naval officer. The sustainability of operations, he answered. Your carriers maintain high operational tempo for weeks at a time without apparent degradation of crew performance or equipment readiness. And what did that suggest to you about our logistics capabilities? That the scale of support operations must be unprecedented, Nakamura replied, his voice carrying professional respect. To maintain crew morale and efficiency during extended combat operations requires not just adequate nutrition, but high-quality meal service that supports both physical health and psychological well-being. Patterson nodded, encouraging the Japanese officer to continue. Can you elaborate on the psychological aspects? Hungry sailors become ineffective sailors, Nakamura explained, drawing on his years of command experience. But more than that, the quality and variety of food affects crew morale dramatically. If your carriers truly maintain high-quality meal service while conducting extended combat operations, that represents a significant tactical advantage beyond the obvious nutritional benefits. What evidence did you observe that suggested high-quality meal service? Nakamura paused, then spoke with the precision of someone recalling specific combat observations. The consistency of American air operations, he said. Your pilots maintained aggressive sortie rates day after day, suggesting crew efficiency levels that could only be sustained through superior logistics including adequate nutrition and rest, and the implications for overall fleet capability. Revolutionary, Nakamura answered without hesitation. If American carriers can truly operate independently for months at a time while maintaining full combat effectiveness, that changes fundamental assumptions about naval strategy and force projection. Patterson made detailed notes while Nakamura continued, his professional fascination evident despite the circumstances of the interrogation. From our perspective, the Japanese officer explained, naval operations were constrained by logistics requirements that forced periodic returns to port for reprovisioning. If American carriers have overcome those constraints through industrial-scale logistics, they possess strategic mobility that exceeds anything we considered possible. In Bari, Maggiore Rossini continued his analysis of the captured American logistics documents, cross-referencing technical specifications with Italian naval capabilities to understand the broader implications of what the documents revealed. His findings would contribute to Italian post-war naval planning, though the immediate strategic impact was limited by Italy's changing status in the conflict. The refrigeration systems alone, Rossini explained to Colonnello Benedetti, represent technology beyond our current naval architecture. According to these specifications, each American carrier maintains multiple refrigerated compartments capable of preserving fresh food for weeks at sea, using centralized cooling systems that exceed the capacity of entire Italian naval bases. Benedetti studied the technical drawings included in the captured documents, noting the sophisticated engineering required to maintain such systems while conducting combat operations. The power requirements must be enormous, he observed, yet they apparently operate these systems continuously while maintaining full propulsion and weapons capability. That's the remarkable aspect, Rossini agreed. The documents describe power plants significantly larger than anything in European naval design, specifically to support extensive auxiliary systems including industrial-scale food preparation. Benedetti considered the broader implications while Rossini continued his analysis. If these capabilities are accurate, Benedetti noted, American carriers represent a new category of naval vessel, essentially floating cities with unprecedented operational independence. Rossini nodded, finding additional technical details that supported that assessment. The crew accommodation sections describe berthing facilities for over 3,600 personnel, with corresponding mess halls, galley facilities, and food storage compartments designed to support continuous operations for months at sea. The psychological warfare implications alone, Benedetti observed, knowing that American forces are well-fed and well-supplied while operating thousands of miles from home ports, must have significant impact on enemy morale. Back aboard I-19, Commander Kinashi prepared to break contact with Task Force 38, having completed his intelligence-gathering mission. The observations recorded during their surveillance would contribute to Japanese understanding of American naval capabilities, though the strategic situation no longer allowed for effective response to such intelligence. Final observations, Kinashi announced to his crew, American carrier operations represent a level of logistics sophistication that exceeds anything in Imperial Japanese Navy experience. The continuous feeding of thousands of personnel while conducting combat operations at sea demonstrates industrial capacity that we cannot match with current resources. Chief Petty Officer Matsuo, who had spent the day documenting supply transfer operations, added his technical assessment. Commander, the underway replenishment procedures we observed operate with mechanical precision suggesting routine rather than emergency operations. The Americans have systematized logistics operations that we consider exceptional circumstances. Include that observation in the report, Kinashi instructed, emphasizing that American naval logistics appear to be designed for continuous operations rather than the port-based reprovisioning that characterizes Japanese naval practices. Lieutenant Hayashi completed his calculations of observed supply volumes, comparing them with Japanese naval standards. Based on our observations, he reported, each American carrier receives daily supplies equivalent to what a Japanese naval base might distribute to multiple vessels over several days. The scale suggests logistics operations designed for forces much larger than individual ship crews. The broader implication, Kinashi concluded, is that American naval strategy assumes extended operations far from home ports, with logistics designed to support that strategic approach. Imperial Japanese Navy planning, by contrast, assumes relatively close cooperation with shore-based facilities. Petty Officer Tanaka transmitted the encoded intelligence report to Combined Fleet Headquarters, adding I-19's observations to the growing body of intelligence about American capabilities that would eventually inform post-war assessments of the conflict's outcome. The report joined other intelligence indicating that American industrial capacity had exceeded Japanese estimates by substantial margins. As autumn 1944 progressed, intelligence reports from Japanese and Italian sources began painting a comprehensive picture of American naval logistics capabilities that exceeded Axis estimates by substantial margins. The systematic feeding of thousands of personnel aboard individual carriers while conducting extended combat operations represented a logistical achievement that would influence post-war naval development across all major naval powers. The observations recorded by I-19 reached Japanese Naval Intelligence Headquarters, where analysts compiled them with other reports indicating American industrial capacity far beyond what Japanese planning had anticipated. Captain Nakamura's interrogation contributed to Allied understanding of Japanese strategic thinking while providing insights into enemy perceptions of American capabilities. Italian analysis of captured logistics documents informed post-war planning while demonstrating the systematic approach required for global naval operations. Each perspective, whether Japanese submarine surveillance, Japanese prisoner interrogation, or Italian document analysis, confirmed the same fundamental conclusion. American carrier logistics operated on an industrial scale that represented a qualitative advancement in naval capability. The continuous feeding of 3,600 personnel per carrier, while conducting extended combat operations thousands of miles from home ports, demonstrated strategic planning and industrial capacity that exceeded traditional naval logistics by orders of magnitude. The technical details observed and recorded by Axis intelligence sources painted a picture of naval operations conducted as industrial enterprises rather than traditional naval activities. Multiple galley facilities operating simultaneously, industrial-scale cooking equipment capable of processing hundreds of pounds of ingredients at once, refrigeration systems maintaining fresh food storage for weeks at sea, and supply procedures designed for continuous underway replenishment all indicated systematic planning for sustained global operations. From Commander Kinashi's periscope observations to Captain Nakamura's professional analysis to Majori Rossini's technical documentation, Axis intelligence sources confirmed that American carrier logistics represented a revolutionary approach to naval operations. The ability to maintain crew efficiency through superior provisioning while conducting extended combat operations provided tactical and strategic advantages that would influence naval development for decades following the war's conclusion. By December 1944, as American carrier task forces continued their advance across the Pacific, the industrial-scale logistics operations that sustained their crews had become recognized by Japanese intelligence as a decisive factor in American naval supremacy. The systematic feeding of thousands of personnel while maintaining continuous combat operations demonstrated industrial capacity and strategic planning that exceeded all previous naval achievements. The galley facilities observed by Japanese submarines, analyzed by Japanese officers, and documented in captured Italian intelligence revealed the technical foundations of American naval logistics. Steam kettles capable of processing 80 gallons of food at once, dough mixers handling 60 pounds of flour simultaneously, refrigeration systems maintaining fresh provisions for weeks at sea, and supply procedures designed for continuous underway replenishment while maintaining formation, steaming, and combat operations. Each Essex-class carrier represented what amounted to a floating city with corresponding logistics requirements, housing 3,600 personnel in accommodation designed for extended operations far from shore-based facilities. The daily production of over 15,000 meals while conducting combat operations required systematic planning and industrial capacity that exceeded traditional naval logistics by several orders of magnitude. The strategic implications extended far beyond simple provisioning, as well-fed crews maintained higher efficiency levels during extended combat operations, providing tactical advantages that multiplied across entire task force operations. The psychological impact of superior logistics, evident in sustained crew morale during months of continuous operations, represented a force multiplier that enhanced all other aspects of American naval capability. Japanese submarine observations, Japanese prisoner analysis, and Italian intelligence documentation all confirmed the same fundamental assessment. American carrier logistics operated on an industrial scale that represented a qualitative advancement in naval capability. The systematic approach to feeding thousands of personnel while conducting extended combat operations demonstrated strategic planning and industrial capacity that would influence naval development across all major powers for decades following the war's conclusion. As 1945 began, Axis intelligence sources had compiled comprehensive documentation of American carrier logistics capabilities that exceeded all previous naval achievements. The industrial-scale food preparation operations observed by Japanese submarines, analyzed by Japanese officers, and documented in captured Italian materials painted a picture of naval operations conducted as systematic industrial enterprises rather than traditional naval activities. The technical specifications recorded by Axis intelligence revealed the engineering foundations of American naval logistics. Galley facilities designed for continuous operations, food storage systems capable of maintaining provisions for months at sea, and supply procedures that enabled underway replenishment while maintaining combat readiness. Each carrier operated multiple galley facilities simultaneously, producing meals on a scale that exceeded the provisioning capacity of entire Axis naval bases. The broader strategic lesson, evident in all Axis intelligence assessments, was that naval supremacy in global conflicts required logistics capabilities on an industrial scale that exceeded traditional naval planning assumptions. The American approach to carrier logistics demonstrated investment in capabilities that supported strategic rather than tactical naval operations, with corresponding advantages that proved decisive in extended Pacific operations. From September 1944 through the war's conclusion, Axis intelligence sources continued documenting American carrier logistics operations that sustained continuous combat operations across thousands of miles of Pacific Ocean. The systematic feeding of 3,600 personnel per carrier while maintaining full combat capability represented a logistical achievement that would influence naval development for generations. The observations recorded by Japanese submarine crews, analyzed by Japanese naval officers, and documented in Italian intelligence reports all confirmed the same revolutionary conclusion. American carrier logistics operated on an industrial scale that exceeded all previous naval achievements. The daily production of over 15,000 meals per carrier while conducting extended combat operations demonstrated strategic planning and industrial capacity that provided decisive advantages in global naval operations. Each perspective, whether Japanese submarine surveillance of Task Force 38, Japanese officer analysis of American operations, or Italian documentation of captured logistics materials, painted the same picture of naval operations conducted as systematic industrial enterprises. The galley facilities, food storage systems, and supply procedures observed by Axis intelligence represented a qualitative advancement in naval capability that would influence post-war naval development across all major powers. The technical details documented by Axis sources revealed the systematic approach required for global naval operations. Industrial-scale cooking equipment, sophisticated refrigeration systems, and supply procedures designed for continuous underway replenishment. The ability to maintain crew efficiency through superior logistics while conducting extended combat operations provided tactical and strategic advantages that proved decisive in Pacific theater operations. As the war concluded, Axis intelligence assessments confirmed that American carrier logistics represented a revolutionary approach to naval operations that exceeded all previous achievements. The industrial-scale feeding of thousands of personnel while maintaining continuous combat capability demonstrated strategic planning and industrial capacity that would influence naval development for decades following the conflict's conclusion. The systematic documentation provided by Japanese submarine observations, Japanese prisoner interrogations, and Italian intelligence analysis revealed the technical and strategic foundations of American naval supremacy. Logistics capabilities designed for global operations rather than coastal defense, industrial capacity specifically developed to support extended combat operations, and systematic planning that anticipated requirements for sustained force projection across oceanic distances. The daily production of over 15,000 meals per carrier while conducting continuous combat operations represented the culmination of American industrial planning that exceeded Axis estimates by orders of magnitude. The technical specifications observed and recorded by enemy intelligence sources confirmed that American carrier logistics operated on a scale that revolutionized naval operations and provided decisive advantages in global maritime conflicts. From the periscope observations of Commander Kinashi to the professional analysis of Captain Nakamura to the technical documentation of Majori Rossini, Axis intelligence sources confirmed that American carrier logistics represented a qualitative advancement in naval capability that would influence maritime strategy for generations. The systematic feeding of thousands of personnel while conducting extended combat operations demonstrated industrial capacity and strategic planning that exceeded all previous naval achievements and established new standards for global naval operations.